I wanted to say something real quick for the people telling on themselves in my comment section. I don't think I can make it any easier for people than putting a timestamp directly taking them to the facts stated in the video. Then I've made it. I don't know why they're telling on themselves by continuing to say stuff that they're still saying, other than it's that little woozy-eyed emoji. But he placed himself there. He placed himself. I mean, maybe if they say it enough times, it'll all of a sudden make Liggett and Holman's sworn testimony say the opposite of what it says. I wanted to emphasize a point that I don't think I was clear enough on in the last thing. I don't think it's clicking with people. Ferency started investigating Elvis Fields because of what his sisters reported to police. Elvis Fields' sister had to go to DHS, and so they were calling their friends in the field offices where they were trying to get someone to interview this woman and take her statements because Unified Command was not interested. So these people came on board separate from Unified Command. So how was Ferency able to make the leap from anything Elvis Fields said unless it had something to do with the crime scene? And how the fuck would Elvis Fields know any of that? How would Ferency go from interviewing Elvis Fields' sister to interviewing Elvis Fields to looking at Patrick Westfall's social media and emailing Liggett a video of this tree and a ceremony and asking about Chuck and Brad Holder's alibi, unless it had something to do with those things? Ferency was emailing Liggett in December of 2018 after interviewing Elvis, Ned, Rod, Messer, all these dipshits. The only reason Ferency, Murphy, and Click had anything to do with the Delphi Murders investigation is because they were investigating it through Elvis Fields. They found all those other suspects by investigating Elvis Fields. They didn't have access to crime scene photos. They didn't know about crime scene details because they weren't part of that task force. So how is Ferency emailing Liggett questions about this tree unless he's looking into some sort of detail he has about the crime scene from his investigation by looking into Elvis Fields' statements, separate from what the people who investigated the crime scene knew? Like, this is an independent finding. And for that video of Patrick Westfall to mean anything to Ferency, why would that video mean anything to Ferency? Unless it had something to do with what Elvis Fields said. That was my point in bringing up that video, because he brought all this up in 2018. So he has all of this information based on the actual suspects. This wasn't, at this point, it was coming from his sisters and the suspect. They knew this in 2018 without the benefit of any of the details of the crime scene. So how were they investigating these details of the crime scene unless someone they were investigating revealed those to them? I'm trying to emphasize that the track they were on were independent findings that I'm sure they would have very much liked to see to the end. But unfortunately, the people they passed it on to that were tasked with that just might as well have thrown it in the trash can. Didn't even consider it, didn't even look into it. We have to account for things. We can't just say, the person I think did it told his wife. Okay, do you understand? I guess the fact that solitary confinement and sleep deprivation, those kind of things, like long-term, we don't just call those interrogation techniques, we call them enhanced interrogation techniques, because they are coercive over time. Why people don't understand that? You cannot take the statements of anyone who has been in solitary for 23 hours a day for 6 months seriously. You have to find something to support those statements before you start taking it seriously. If you don't understand that, I can't help you. But you can go write your manifestos elsewhere, because here we're trying to figure out what actually happened. If you would like to join us in that effort, get in. If you've already made up your mind, then please just wait for this to be over. Because if you're right, what else can be done except to just wait? But for those of us who are not interested in just taking the word of a dirty cop or someone who's been in seg. Some of us would like to resolve this. I don't know what that tree says. I don't know if it's an F. I don't know if it's an Othla. I don't know what any of it is because nobody got to finish fucking investigating it. I think someone should have. And I do have questions. I don't think it's crazy to wonder why Greg Ferency was onto this trail back in 2018 when nobody else knew about it, except for the people in the very, very early months. Sparking all these, okay, we got to get some experts in here. The reason for that was because of the people that Greg Ferency ended up investigating without Unified Command's help, cooperation, assistance, or insight. This was like an independent finding. And unless you can tell me how they were able to put those pieces together and why you think Ferency and Click and Murphy would just be making this shit up, the actual people in charge of handling this investigation are giving sworn statements that there is no physical or digital evidence linking the man in custody to the crime or the victims. They turned over geofence data that places more than one person in and around the crime scene between the hours of 12 and 6. They got all of Mr. Allen's phones. None of his phones are in their data. Everybody keeps saying, well, where does his location data put him? Well, not near the crime scene. So even if Mr. Allen comes out with records, what, we're going to say that the police records are wrong now? There's no evidence against Mr. Allen. Not to the crime scene, not to the victims, not from Google or Verizon or whoever, all the telecoms. So unless y'all are going to say that all the telecoms are in on this conspiracy to help Mr. Allen operate as some sort of stealth ninja, I mean, the point of bringing up Ferency and that tree and that email is not about whether or not it was a pagan human sacrifice. Number one, the crime scene, the way we have been told it looked, is a textbook ritualistic crime. We don't know if all the weird shit around the crime scene tells us about the person who committed it or not, because very little effort was put into following up on any of that. So if you want to dismiss something none of us can actually know about, that's on you, but I'd rather follow it as far as I can. So when I rule something out, I can rule it out based on substance. I think instead of deciding, I believe this person, that person, at some point we could probably just start defining things based on whether they've been substantiated or not.
Let loose.